It's time.
Bring on the hot.
Here we go.
Cocktail show.
Get ready to have a good time.
Let's have a good time.
This is exciting. Isn't it?
Oh, I like that.
Hello, testing.
Welcome aboard the Dreamliner.
It's the only way to fly.
Rob Ryan Sullivan is my next guest. Rob, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on, Gary.
Oh, I'm glad to do it because I read your book, A Trek Within, and a lot of interesting things came out in that book. And as you pointed out, now you get into a lot of how you've navigated through life, through different hardships. But then you say at the beginning, this is not a self-help book. You're not trying to preach, do this, do that, and this will work for you. If you find some of the things you talk about to be beneficial, great, but that's not your purpose in writing this book, right?
That's it exactly. Yeah, that there are things that there. It's a lot of things that I was not raised to believe, but that I've come to accept. And if it helps enrich somebody else's life, great. But it's not. There's no new religion on the horizon.
I want to start with this. 2015, your 48th birthday, and you are diagnosed with malignant tumors. Yeah, and how does that set you off on a different path? Obviously, when you get that kind of news, it changes everything. Prior to those moments, your first 48 years going along okay, the regular stuff everybody goes through?
Yeah, everything. It was mostly the regular stuff. I mean, there was, some experiences with alternative medicine and getting cured of narcolepsy by a hands-on healer, which was pretty cool, given that my dad was a doc at Northwestern, so I'm not exactly a poster child for alternative medicine. But yeah, the 48th birthday, that was eye-opening because I was never expecting. I mean, when I went in for the scan that morning, I went in at 6:30 because I'm like, it's my birthday. I want to have the day to hang out and, have fun and do whatever. I wasn't expecting to get news like that.
And you get the diagnosis. Where does your head go at that moment?
Well, I'm embarrassed to say, up until that point, there had been, birthdays were not something that I really look forward to. I mean, as a kid, it was great. Your mom sends you to school with cupcakes, but after a while, they became a yearly reminder that I wasn't necessarily where I thought I should be in life. And then I'd get the letters from the insurance company saying, hey, happy birthday, your rates just went up. So there were a lot of things that were not really great about birthdays. But then literally in that moment, I realized what a gift it was, because not to sound too dramatic, but I sat there and wondered, am I going to see my next birthday? But then, it was interesting because there was a lot of fear at the beginning. I'm not going to pretend there wasn't, but there was an almost immediate shift over the next few days to a place of peace where I just felt like this happened for a reason. I got to figure it out and I need to walk through it. I'm not going to fight it. I just need to deal with it.
You made the disease your, dare I say, companion. You worked with it and that helped you heal.
Absolutely. Because I thought to myself, people, I just never, things like fighting cancer and kicking cancer's ass, it just never really resonated with me. And my belief right from the start, and I don't know exactly where it came from, but I just had this sense that, these tumors came to give me a gift and I need to figure out what that gift is. And I need to walk through and you just accept the gift, learn the lesson, whatever it is, and move on. And that's literally what happened. It's going to sound weird, but that was like when I went through chemo, that period was probably the happiest time of my life, which is an odd thing to say because I spent literally, on and off 4 months, every other couple of weeks in the hospital. It was like 545 hours of inpatient chemo, but it was really a magical, really genuinely funny time. I mean, there were some hilarious moments. And it was just being open to a lot of that changed. People were really surprised, and I surprised myself with my attitude toward it. But everything, when I look back, I realized that everything that had happened up to that point had actually prepared me for it in a really weird way that I couldn't have known in advance.
You say in the book, Rob, that the universe is a friendly place. And I think a lot of people go, wow, I don't know how you can extract that out of what's going on on the planet. And how did you come to that conclusion?
Well, it was interesting because it's at least it was a quote attributed to Einstein. He said, one of the most important lessons or determinations you can make is the universe a friendly place? And I realized that I'd spent a lot of my life thinking that it wasn't. I would be riding my bike, up Grand Avenue on the way to the gym and expecting car doors to open in front of me and expecting people to cut me off. And I realized that a lot of those expectations was creating this just enormous amount of negative energy. And that, when I shifted that and I expected to see something different, that was when I actually began to see things different.
And the synchronicities that you talk about in the book and dream interpretations, all that stuff that some people might push away. As we talked about before we went on the show, I really believe in these synchronicities, and I call them vortexes, seemingly random things that intersect. And I'm thinking, how did that happen? Now, some people go, well, there's nothing to it. It's all just the way it should be, and don't look into it. But you've really analyzed these things, dreams and synchronicities, and you've consulted psychics too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because, it's more than you can write off to chance. And as an example, and this is not like a life-saving sort of thing, but a number of years ago, I had an issue with my hand where my fingers were numb periodically. And I went to the neurologist and did all the usual things. And everybody's like, oh, it's your neck, blah, blah. And there's a woman I know, her name's Nadia. She's an amazing psychic. I mean, she's gifted. She's not one of these neon sign, oh, you're going to meet somebody special on a day that ends in Y type people. It's, she's the real deal. And I asked her, I said, what's going on with that? And she said, well, I'm not supposed to give you medical information. I said, okay, fair enough. I get that. I said, I'm going to go to doctors and everything. Is there anything I should know? And she said, well, yeah. She said, it's not your neck, it's your shoulder blade. So fast forward. Now, I shared that information, and here's my mistake. I shared the information with the neurologist. I shared it with the osteopath or chiropractor or whatever that I went to. I shared it with my physical therapist, who was actually very open to psychics and intuitives and stuff. They all wrote it off because when they heard the source of the information, they're like, oh, yeah, whatever. And okay, fast forward 9 months. Insurance is running out. We're not making the progress on the treatment that we thought. Another PT looks at me and she said, I have to do an evaluation. So she starts doing it. And then she starts rubbing my shoulder right here. And she said, what do you get when I do that? I said, oh, I've got a knot there. I've always had it. She said, it's not a knot, it's a bone. I said, I didn't think there was a bone there. She said, there isn't supposed to be. It's your shoulder blade. My shoulder blade was out of place, significantly, about that much. And so, when you're talking about a half an inch or 3/8 of an inch out of place, yeah, that's going to cause some problems with the nerves around it. And that information came from a psychic.
Wow. What about dream interpretation, Rob? How has that come about in your life?
Well, it's interesting. I've always paid attention to dreams. I had a dream early on that I needed to write a couple of books, which I laughed off when I had it. But the biggest dream, one that just literally happened 4 years ago, it was December 30th, and I had a dream that saved my life, literally. So I woke up in the dream. I was standing on an ocean, and it was a very rough seas, and I'm standing next to a lifeguard. And it was clear there had been a storm, and it felt like there might be another one. And this lifeguard in the dream communicates telepathically to me. He said, don't be thrown by the calm. It's going to get worse before it gets better. So he turns around, starts running. And I'm thinking, okay, if he's running, I'm running. So I start running as fast as I can. By the time I pretty much caught up to him, there was a wall to my left. It was about 50 feet high with those big cinder block things all stacked up. And at the time I got to the wall, this huge wave crashes into the wall. The wall blocks about 90% of the water, but about 10% got through, and you could see the seaweed and stuff coming on the other side. And I woke up and I was like, wow, that was an incredible dream. So I go to the gym. I'm at the gym. When I leave, my shoulder blade was bugging me, or my collarbone rather was bugging me a little bit. And I just started massaging. And I thought, okay, I wonder what that's all about. But, you get muscle cramps all the time. So I didn't think about it. I went to the orthopedic surgeon to get an injection in my ankle. And I asked him a question. I said, why, if my ankle is bone on bone, is the pain, 4 inches up my leg instead of in my ankle? And he goes, oh, that's referral pain, like if you were having a heart attack. My next stop was the endodontist because my dentist wanted me to get a 360 x-ray because he thought a tooth had been chipped. He asked me, he said, are you having pain in that tooth that was up on the top? And I said, no, but I said, the one below it, I get pain in. He said, oh, that's referral pain. And I'm thinking, why am I hearing about referral pain twice in one day? I knew what it was. It's where you get pain in an area where you wouldn't expect it, based on where the actual injury or trauma is. But I couldn't figure out why I was having it. Go home, fast forward, client meeting. This had calmed down. And then I was walking up Grand Avenue to go get shrimp tacos, and this came back. And immediately I remembered the dream. And I would not have paid any attention to this because my ankle has hurt more on any given day than this ever did. But it came back, and I remembered the dream, and I literally stopped on Grand and Ogden. And it's going to sound dramatic, but I looked up and I quietly said, checking with my intuition, I said, do I need to get this looked at, or can I go get shrimp tacos? Which is sort of an odd question to pose, but that was the one. And the answer came back immediately. You need to get it looked at. So I go over, call for an Uber, go to the urgent care that's over on, I think it was Lake Avenue. They hooked me up immediately. They're like, your heart is not getting enough oxygen. You need to go to the emergency room right now. And they sent me there. And when I got there, they said the artery on the left wall of my heart was 90% blocked, which is exactly the dream. It was the left, the wall was to my left, and it was blocking 90% of the wave that was crashing into it. And literally, had it not been for that dream, I would have ignored this because this was nothing. It wasn't, the crushing pain that people talk about. It was a minor inconvenience, but it scared me because of the dream. And I'm here because of that.
Yeah. I talked about this coincidence, whatever you call it, on last Friday's show. You mentioned this author, Asa Baber, who was a writer for Playboy magazine, and it drew up this memory of an article he wrote in the magazine. And I told the story last Friday. I'm not going to repeat it now, but you mentioned this guy in the first several pages of your book, and I'm like, wow, okay. And then there were several other things that came through that I had connections with. And I had not met you before a few months ago. It wasn't like we had hung out and all this, and we would know the same people. So right there, I thought, okay, something going on here. And I liked telling that story last week about Jackie Cooper and his father and that kind of stuff. Like you said, it's not random, right?
Exactly. And, the reference in the book was, with that one was, I had a dream that Ace had been in the hospital, and I didn't know that he was dying of ALS at the time, or I would have taken I wish I had been a little bit more alert at that point, because.
Tell us how you know Asa for that reference.
Yeah. So Asa had actually seen me interviewed on TV, because I have another book out called Getting Your Foot in the Door When You Don't Have a Leg to Stand On. It was a job search book that McGraw-Hill put out a number of years ago. He saw me on the Stock Market Observer, the Channel 26 here in Chicago, and he called me up and he said, I want to meet you. And he took me to lunch at with Syed Nova, and we met, and I just really loved, he's such a charming guy. I really liked him. And he was really instrumental. He was one of those people that, sometimes you meet people and they change the trajectory of your life. Asa was one of those people, because we sat there at lunch, and I was in the process of getting that book, published at the time. And I asked him, I said, you're a writer. I said, what agent would you recommend I look for? And I'll never forget, he looked at me and he said, you need to call Jane Jordan Brown. But he said, if you do, he goes, do me a favor. If you do, don't mention my name. If she knows me, she doesn't like me. But he said, she is the best at what she does. And a couple of weeks later, she became my agent.
Wow. Yeah. All these great stories are in the book, A Trek Within, and we're just touching the surface. And if you are interested in anything we've talked about and more, it's in this book. And Rob, it was a pleasure to meet you and to read the book. So,
thank you. It's a
yeah.
pleasure to be on your show. Nice to.
Hey,
Yeah.
thank you, and have a great holiday.
You too, sir.
All right, Rob Sullivan.